Well, hey everybody, it's your good old pal EmptyHero, and today, because Hideo Kojima looked up from the pile of goofballs he's been snorting for the past 10 years just long enough to realize that Metal Gear Rising's story wasn't nearly enough of a convoluted clusterfuck for his liking, and that he would have to give up developing it in order to more fully focus on not finishing Metal Gear Solid 5 instead, we are going to discuss Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, aka How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Just Let Her Rip. Kintsugi is the fine Japanese art of fixing broken pottery with gold, thereby creating something uniquely beautiful that could only exist because it was once broken. Bukkake is the fine Japanese art of pieing a woman in the face with only your prostate pudding because her relationship with her dad was broken. I mention these archaic gobbledygook terms because, in defiance of Guillermo del Toro's plot to sabotage every project Hideo Kojima begins, Platinum Games assumed the remnants of this once doomed game and reforged it into something uniquely beautiful. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance has everything an enterprising young NEET could possibly want from an action game. Vibrating swords, stolen from your mother's top drawer, a robotic bitch with hydraulic tits, and the deaths of uncountable Mexican children. Rewarding gameplay and over-the-top writing meet in this incestuous mixture of Devil May Cry and Metal Gear Solid. Now, that's not to say that Revengeance is the bad flipper baby making kind of incest my parents practiced, but more like that one time you shared a sleeping bag with your cousin and she fought it on the tip of your pecker so perfectly that you blew a bubbling bolus of boyhood belly butter all over her big old blood-related booty, and when she woke up, you tried to play it off by pretending you spilled some vanilla pudding on her back by mistake, but she knew something was wrong the moment she noticed all the blood in the supposed pudding, and you had to hurry out to a urologist, and oh god, Sharkweefa, I'm so sorry I ruined your quinceañera. The only problem I really have with Revengeance is this little Trinidadian fuck who speaks in vomited up alphabet soup, and while George doesn't lower my enjoyment of Revengeance, every time I see him, I get motivated to mow my own lawn, and the border wall gets 10 feet higher. The combat of Revengeance is incredibly punishing at first, but becomes accessible once the player stops bitching and learns how to parry. Blocks, parries, and dodges require precise timing and, when missed, generally end with robotic basketball Americans grabbing Raiden from behind like an uncle who's had just the right amount to drink and manually recalibrating his booty hole. Sub-weapons are mapped to the heavy attack Y button, requiring players to mash Y as if their controller suddenly came to life and suffered an existential breakdown to use them. Unfortunately, the lack of real-time weapon switching severely limits either the player's options or the flow of the game. For example, the thigh is only good for grabbing distant enemies, then kicking them square in their Rubik's Cube looking robot nuts. This should have been a context-sensitive attack or accessible with a quick mid-battle toggle, but it isn't, so you'll almost never use it. On the off chance you want to use the machete for heavy damage, or the bow staff for hitting the little dingleberry enemies, whose arms it's made from, so you can tell them to stop hitting themselves with every thrust, you'd better plan ahead. Often, players will think to swap weapons at a crucial moment and get deep dish pizza dicked while waiting for the menu to load. The B button is used exclusively for context-sensitive stealth kills and absolutely nothing else. This may seem like a waste of a button at first until you realize that, when designing the combat, some intern probably said, "Hey, Hideo, I'm a fatso Jimbo. Stop throwing money at B-list Hollywood cast-offs in hopes that they'll become your friends for a second, and help me design some more uses for the B button," and Kojima dismissed him as a stuttering idiot. When Raiden's emo boy bar fills up, or he softens an enemy up enough, players can enter cut bitches up like a depressed 15-year-old girl's arms mode, and utilize the Vandatsu mechanic, which I believe is Japanese for the pleasure of being cummed inside, to grab the high C pouches hidden in enemies' b-holes in order to completely refill Raiden's health. Sub-weapons are fairly pointless outside of the monsoon boss fight, but can occasionally help players out of a head-scratching scenario. For example, during the optional hostage rescues, Raiden can use a pulse grenade to disable enemies just long enough to slap-chop their nuts, or equip a rocket launcher and send them all to Allah. However, the lack of real-time item swapping comes into play, so you'll probably never use them. The Ninja Run mode allows Raiden to quickly traverse over obstacles, certain enemy attacks and projectiles, but it only works when Raiden has his feet planted firmly on the ground. If you jump manually while holding Ninja Run, Raiden will run headfirst into walls, harder than an armless homosexual Mongolian trying desperately to install a glory hole on the Great Wall of China. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance's story is pure cheese, which I mean in the best possible way. From this point forward, I'm going to tackle the events of Revengeance's 10 missions one at a time, including the DLC, so I suggest you sit back, crack open an ice cold beer, and let your stacky balls flop in the breeze like the American flag. At the outset of Revengeance, we find our protagonist, Raiden, guarding a fictional version of Barack Obama, whose played-out Ugandan Knuckles impression has turned the world against him. A Brazilian samurai which, on a side note, is what I call it when I rip off a woman's pubes and fling them into her eyes until she squints, arrives, and a showdown to decide which side's grunts are the baldest ensues. Preferring to splash his enemy's blood and entrails on his cock and balls, rather than on his rented suit, Raiden gets completely butt-ass naked and the game begins. The first handful of encounters train players to utilize the various mechanics, though the basic dodge function is locked behind an optional upgrade, so most players will spend their first hour of the game getting stomped by long-legged cows harder than if they fell over at an all-female rockabilly mosh pit. Moments later, the only cyborg who opted for the dad bod model appears, complains about Raiden interfering with the Rothschilds' war profiteering, then runs off with Barack, leaving Raiden to duke it out with Metal Gear Ray Romano. This fight serves to reinforce the player's need to parry attacks, due to 50 regular sword slices delivering 1/20th the damage of a nothing personnel attack, and concludes by highlighting Revengeance's uses of acceptable action game QuickTime events. While I generally hate QTEs for reducing the tension of a fight near as quickly as they do the remaining cartilage in my thumbs, Revengeance gets a pass, as half of his button prompts are limited to post-fight cutscenes, and the other half are generally optional. One foot race and rematch later, Raiden is ready for his deadliest challenge yet, impersonating Eric Clapton's Stupid Baby. Raiden then finally reunites with Barack Obama aboard a freight train where Eggman claims that the war that Obama's death would spawn could create jobs, spur innovation, and give boomers something to pretend to support while they sit around on their fat, lazy asses actually doing nothing while sending each other's children off to die in their place. But Raiden remains unconvinced. Then, instead of the customary bags of Jimmy's cracked corn or sloppy moonshine-fueled hoblo jobs one might expect while freight hopping a boxcar, Obama receives the hardest penetration from behind he's suffered since his honeymoon with Michelle. Enraged, Raiden intends to attack, but is buffeted by a cybernetic samurai who wields a blood-red katana composed of the purest weeaboo extracts, and simply put, does not associate with ninjas. In the man-on-man Sam Slam that ensues, Raiden gets a taste of the Odin treatment while attempting to settle the aeons-old argument of what is more important, perp ass or just tits. Deus Ex ground support intervenes, and Raiden is all, you know what, I'ma chill right here for about a minute, as the prologue comes to an end. The first numbered level begins with our protagonist laying on his stomach and ready for insertion like the degenerate twink he is. Off-screen, Raiden received a new metal jaw for chewing the scenery, a cybernetic compound eye shaped like a headband, perfect for obscuring the seams of his brand new, even more flamboyant white snake wig, and perhaps most impactful of all, a complete lower body overhaul with a marked emphasis on accentuating his carbon fiber codpiece and inadequate penis. Suddenly, Raiden's obsession with gigantic vibrating swords and complete inability to slay pussy makes absolute sense. Players have been dispatched by the private military group Maverick named after the tumor that polished off John McCain, to Abkhazia to prevent Desperado, the group behind the attack in the prologue, and also the deadliest thing to come out of Delaware since Nelia Biden's driving skills, from igniting another war. Raiden's support team includes the strategician Boris, whom occasionally calls Raiden Tovarich, which roughly translates to either comrade or someone who is rich in Tova. Next comes the geography, culture, and Sway Calloway cosplay consultant Kevin, who wears goggles at all times, despite obviously never swimming, and Courtney, who's supposed to help Raiden save his progress, but the game autosaves, so she's pretty much only good for giving boners to weirdos who have a fetish for Tweety Bird-looking sluts. Finally, Dr. Doctor gives us the news that we've got a bad case of killing dudes, and compels Raiden to facilitate this Doctor's strange love of collecting the left arms of fallen foes, which I can only assume he uses for giving himself extra disassociative strangers. Doctor is responsible for most of the on-location support and designed Raiden's new body with a bullet time feature so that he could harvest the precious bodily fluids from the gonads of his horrified enemies. No one is exactly sure why. Raiden hacks into town to confront Desperado and asks them when will they come to their senses, since they've been out riding fences for too long. Oh, they're a hard one. And though they've got reasons, the things that are pleasing, then we'll chop them into 100,000 fucking pieces. Our hockey-haired hewer of humanoids is first confronted by waves of cyborg soldiers with emotion inhibitors and constant priapisms, then a robotic dog with a chainsaw for a tail, a cone drill for a knot, and a penchant for the occasional existential crisis. Luckily, Raiden taps into his inner robotic Bob Barker and manages to both neuter and pound this puppy into a million Scooby snacks. Ruh-roh! A female helicopter pilot from Miami then enacts her feminist architectural redesigns upon the bridge Raiden is standing on and forces him into a confrontation that they could have easily won by simply increasing their altitude and bombarding Raiden with surplus communists. Moments later, Raiden utilizes his superhuman speed to cut a Fortnite-looking slut's blown kiss out of the sky, thereby avoiding what would have likely proven to become a fatal case of the cooties, and keeping the second-hand soul food breath out of his face. On the plus side, this Vishnu-armed slut has 8 armpits to sniff, killer legs to go with her deadly arms, and hangs out with super kawaii robotic prostates that can check themselves for lumps. Mistral, the cold quiff of France, then receives the ultimate cold shoulder, and Raiden racks up another thought eliminated. Her boss then blows himself up after realizing he'll never receive another 70-finger hand-to-gland job again, and the first official level comes to an end. Appropriately enough, level number 2 finds our hero infiltrating the only sewer in Mexico large enough to accommodate the millions of sopping wet, red-hot burrito shits produced by Mexicans on an hourly basis, while in search of Desperado's secret underground lair. Luckily, though Maverick suspected Desperado was conducting experiments on human beings in this facility, it turns out that they were only cutting up minorities. What a relief! The robotic dog Raiden chopped into so many pieces that a robotic Chinaman would have to drink it through a robotic straw, got better off screen, and is now on our side. This so-called Blade Wolf serves as an even-tempered foil to Raiden's spicy Latin passion, scouts the area of the head, and tactically consumes any robotic cat turds before Raiden can step in them and ruin his Nikes. Though, Raiden will encounter flame-throwing mechanical daddy longlegs, cybernetic Harambes, and digitized dinosaurs, the greatest threat to the player's ability to proceed comes in the form of a child whom has just escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement. The cocktail of Teddy Grahams and barbiturates rushing through Georgie Porgy's system have left the boy mumbling a mixture of mispronounced pop cultural references so annoyingly abstruse that he requires 2 layers of subtitles to understand. Apparently, Walt Disney has been whittling children down until they're nothing but a whole lot of medulla oblongata, so that he'll finally have the brains to rule Ilat. can train them to become soldiers like Raiden and unload the leftover nipples, buttholes, and backs of the knees to the Clinton Foundation for an easy profit. Realizing the Clintons are involved, Maverick pussies out and attempts to force Raiden to retreat. Being a red-pilled man who goes his own way, however, Raiden refuses and pursues his lead. Fittingly, he utilizes a robotic dingleberry to take a dupe and comes to the stunning realization that, even in the future, people still have to deal with always putting the USB in upside down on their first attempt. Raiden then revengeances the Tiananmen Square massacre by taking out the mobile tank armor Grad, which is named after how the Japanese boss developer felt after somebody complimented him on its design. At the climax of this level, players are confronted by the madness of a doctor whom would vent poisonous gas onto Mexican children when he could just as easily have given them burritos in that sealed room and let nature take its course. Dr. Franks and Beans then takes George hostage, and instead of stabbing the blade over George's shoulder, Raiden reads the player's mind and cuts them both clean through from shoulder to hip instead. Unfortunately, Doctor manages to revive the future drywall technician off screen, but couldn't nano-machine his shit vocabulary away. Realizing that he must prevent the NPC programming of the imprisoned children, Raiden hurries towards Desperado's corporate headquarters. Regrettably, Denver's state troopers mistakenly attack Raiden mid-transit due to Raiden's tinted windows, making him appear black. One Princess Diana parking job later, and the police assault Raiden as if he just tried to sell a loose cigarette outside of a gas station to support his family, since acquiring a real job would have cut too much into his cup his own balls than smelling his palm while standing in the middle of the fucking road and blocking traffic time. Despite being a good boy who didn't do nothing, Raiden is forced to live out the fantasies of everyone whomst has ever been asked, "What exactly is that smell in your car, sir?" And the pork begins to fly. Raiden can only take solace in knowing that his wife and son are sequestered safely in New Zealand, where they spend their days partaking in the official PewDiePie drinking game by sitting in a mosque and taking a shot every time PewDiePie gets a sub. A ghastly gauntlet involving the most dangerous rooftop meeting since some traditional Muslims tried to help their homosexual brethren paint the town red, but only had enough to cover the sidewalk. The biggest pack of cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, this side of the Freegan colony that squats in the cistern beneath a certain Californian abortion clinic, and the ludicrous markups of open-air mall prices whittles away Raiden's resolve. Jetstream Sam appears, and leveraging the fact that Raiden just killed a couple thousand soldiers and cops who were just doing their jobs, inflicts Raiden's firmware with a heroic blue screen of death, and causes the poor sap to walk like I often do after eating an entire meatloaf. The player then stumbles around naked in public, doing their best to avoid encounters with the police like I sometimes do after rolling off an uncooperative woman. Raiden then confronts a virtual boy-headed, meme-loving fuck whose names resulted from an overworked Jamaican character designer currently responding to the question, "Hey Jamarcus, when will you come up with the name for this wind-theme boss?" by saying, "Mon, soon!" This personificated incarnation of the timeless quandary, fucking magnets, how do they work, takes Raiden to task for his careless usage of memes on 4chan and how they reduce once brilliant conversations into contests to see whom can post the rarest Pepes. Sensing that his ultra-rare Pepe stash is in danger, Jack activates his, "you know what, fuck this shit" mode, which allows Raiden to dice up regular enemies without having to activate slow-mo, but has no actual application for boss fights, so for now is just for show. Utilizing his diabolical strategy of throwing things at Raiden from a distance, then kicking him in the shin when he's not looking, Monsoon puts up an amazing fight which ends with Raiden chopping him into even more pieces than a KFC family meal. Raiden then enters the enemy's HQ, intent on rescuing the disembodied children's brains stored in John Podesta's office suite, capturing one of those spare Mistral bodies to use as his own personal cum sleeve, and maybe, just maybe, raiding some legal weed from the break room during the confusion. After finding out firsthand that the secretary has no ass, Raiden is dispatched to the HR department, where he blames his problems on an undiagnosed case of turret syndrome. Players will then stealth through an office, like me, while smuggling free toner out of the building in my beehole. That is, until the enemy does their best impression of the CIA by blowing up their own building and leveraging the panic to begin a war in the Middle East. Luckily, the enemy's rocket fuel can't melt steel beams, so Raiden is able to rise above the destruction and start some big trouble in this little China reception area. Which reminds me, you should always ask a Chinaman if he has any developmental difficulties before accepting any invitations or favors from him. The other day my friend Ping asked me if I wanted a Chinese finger trap. I said sure, so the dyslexic fuck jammed my fist right up his bunghole, ruining both my day and the sandwich I was holding. Mr. Lightning Bolt then turns an elevator into that scene from The Shining. Mercy kills the clone of Monsoon that was created so neither of them would be virgins, then confronts Sundowner just as he's about to go down on his son. Get some brain from a child. Touch his children's innards or well, something like that. Since Sundowner is neither a Clinton, a senior staff member of the British Broadcasting Corporation, or that one uncle we invite to Thanksgiving but never acknowledge the presence of once he arrives, his molestations of the children cannot go unpunished. Though he longs for the good old days after 9/11 when you could start a war to enrich the Bush family and openly joke about how a typical Muslim interracial relationship involves a brown Muslim man and a white sheep without having to worry about a bunch of blue-haired father resenters flagging down your YouTube video, Raiden bypasses our follicle-forsaken foe's shield and reminds Sundowner that the future's now, old man, before chopping him to pieces of feces. Before getting KO'd, SD's DSL let it slip on the DL that Desperado LLC wants to make the US Prez into BBQ. Raiden then searches his feelings and decides that the best thing he can possibly do is literally hack into a stealth aircraft with his sword, much like how the Fonz was able to control jukeboxes with his dick, or how Mistral was able to get the last crust of toast out of a top-loading toaster by squatting down and glomping onto the crumbs with her disgusting dangly pussy lips. Then rains fiery metallic debris all over Denver and its population of hipster douchebags. The 5th level is basically the exterior section of the 3rd level in reverse, and ends with Raiden stealing a motorcycle while missing the perfect opportunity for a road rash or Final Fantasy VII's Escape from Midgar inspired motorcycle minigame. Though frankly, that sort of genre-breaking distraction is exactly what made Bayonetta such an unpolished clusterfuck, so it's probably for the best that the developer avoided it. The brevity of this level highlights Revengeance's complete hatred of filler, and you can tell that the architects of Revengeance put all their efforts into the boss fight that follows instead. A little ways down the road, we find our good old enemy Jet Set Radio Sam, chilling out with Metal Wolf, and he challenges our protagonist to a duel, rather than just murdering the support team that Raiden was trying to reach. Out of respect for Sam's decency, and because the game needed another boss fight, Raiden accepts. In Sam, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama, Maz, own words, this desperate struggle is not about money or who is right, since history will be decided by the Jews who have a stranglehold on the publishing industry and schooling systems. Slamma-Jamma Samma possesses a tremendous pool of movesets and optional tactics which unfold depending on how the player behaves. Platinum put an entire level's worth of effort into this one boss fight, and it shows. No matter how you go about giving that Brazilian Jap a quintillion slaps, the motivations behind his actions are left for the DLC, and there, in the desert, Samwise Gamgee receives his just deserts. Though, the change from white blood to red blood for cyborgs and the localization kind of botches the reveal that only Sam's arm was bionic. I guess they wanted to hold off on using up all their white fluid until the Mistral character model was reappropriated by the creeps who make source filmmaker porn and ruin the underside of my desk. Being the blithering imbecile that I am, Raiden sprints to the next area rather than getting back on his motorcycle, and finally meets up with the team that will fly him to the final stage. Sunny returns from Metal Gear Solid 4, equipped with ballistics, and is now dressed like she's about to spray some graffiti while rollerblading, and is slathered with grease from an Italian she waved to from across the room. Raiden's final mission, if players are up to the task, is to infiltrate Shabba Flabba Yabba Dabba Doo base in Afghanistan, where the President of America is set to inspect his strategic stronghold in that godless, desolate wasteland, and is also where Desperado intends to attack next. Raiden can sneak in, slipping between cameras and planes, or just kill everything in sight like a spermicide tablet dropped into your fat mama's stomach. Towards the end, Raiden finds that Blade Wolf got the old Yeller treatment off screen, and before he can ask, "What's up, dog?" a gargantuan tarantula-looking robot splits the ice, and Senator Armstrong emerges from the pit of his cock. Not only does he like the way he looks in his big and tall suit, but his plan to spark a war by attacking the base has been a complete success. After some back and forth about using war as a business to get elected to end war as a business, which, by the way, is kinda like raping a rapist to end rape, which frankly did not work on me, but thanks for trying anyways, Dad. Armstrong flicks his used-up Lewinsky probe at Raiden, and the fight against the big oh shit begins. Metal Gear Excelsis attacks include trying to smush Raiden with his arms, trying to smush Raiden with his feet, and utilizing a tantalizing combination of CalMechs and laser beams for the occasional impromptu backyard robot barbecue. I like mine medium rare with just a hint of nano repair paste. Delicious! Like every other gazelle-legged lanklet in this game, Raiden chops off, then beats Excelsis to death with its own legs. The hand-to-hand showdowns between Raiden and Armstrong that follow raise the following questions. How exactly does flexing near a bunch of wires transform Armstrong into Kathy Bates? Why didn't Raiden know better than to mess with football? How did an American politician get away with weaponizing blackface for so long? Which member of the Trump campaign was a bad enough dude to play this game and copy Armstrong's motto of "Make America Great Again"? And perhaps, most perplexing of all, before going to bed, does a cross-dressing psychoanalyst put on a Freudian slip? The final showdown between these two is perhaps the greatest boss fight in the history of video games. Defeating Armstrong requires every skill mastered over the course of Raiden's campaign, and though it's a real challenge, the player will never feel like it's not their own fault for screwing up when they die. While most people consider Ninja Gaiden Black and Devil May Cry 3 to be the two best action games of all time, I believe this final fight with Armstrong firmly cements Revengeance as being just as good, if not better, than those two. It's a real shame we'll never get a sequel, but at least that means Konami will never get a chance to drag their balls across Revengeance like they've done with literally every other property they own. After having a completely different kind of heart-to-heart with Armstrong, and proving Armstrong right about how the strong need to use their own methods, morals, and Alex Jones' male vitality supplements to achieve their goals, Raiden finds that not only did he save all those succulent child brains, but that they've been given new synthetic bodies and hired out to take turns lying naked across Michael Jackson's tomb, as he wished for in his will. A brief epilogue reveals that Raiden has vanished, likely to avoid paying child support to Rose, that Sunny is too autistic to pick up on George hitting on her, and that George will later accidentally rip off his own penis while attempting to masturbate with his retard-strong robot arm. Sam's DLC delves into his motivations, explains how Armstrong's strong arm strong-armed Sam into losing his original arm, and complements the events of the main campaign. His taunts make enemies easier to kill, but also impossible to parry. He can double jump by kicking his own buttock cheeks, like I do whenever I need to knock loose a fart, and while Sam has a diminished ability to parry, and a tiny black man who follows him everywhere he goes, and copies his every move in an apparent display of disrespect, Sam has more power allocated to his charged attacks overall. Think of this mini-campaign as one long job interview for Sam to be hired by Desperado, and the explanation for why he left the only man other than Armstrong capable of killing him, the only sword capable of cutting Armstrong, and you'll do just fine. Wolf's DLC has a platforming and stealth focus, explains why all the Dingleberry bots have pink eyes, due to taking turns holding a Mistral's filthy shit-poop butt, makes one wonder how an 8-armed belly rub would feel. Takes the obvious route of having a dog attack its own black owner the moment the opportunity arises, even before licking its own roll balls, and pits players against a weaponized Christopher Reeve knockoff who thinks it's still September 12, 2001. These very brief missions serve as a nice diversion and explain Blade Wolf's otherwise odd obsession with achieving sapience and freedom in the main campaign. The VR missions offer an interesting diversion from the main game and generally occur in contained environments with a simple goal like kill all enemies with a certain weapon, reach a checkpoint without being seen, or survive a fight using only Zandatsu in the dark in under a minute while the rest of your peers are out partying and getting laid. While fun might not be the most accurate word to describe these optional challenges, since most completed missions imbue the player with the same sense of accomplishment one might attain from solving a Rubik's Cube by jamming it up their ass during an earthquake, I just think it's nice for Raiden to have a virtual mission that doesn't involve cartwheeling around naked while his girlfriend nags him for a change. Overall, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance feels like a bigger game was initially planned by Team Kojima, and when Platinum took over, they whittled it down to just its best components. There's zero filler or dull parts, and frankly, I wish the rest of Platinum's games took the same approach. Well, that's it for today's video. I would like to thank all my Patreons, a little harder than usual this time around, for voting this Revengeance re-review, since I hadn't thought of the game in years and had nearly forgotten how great it is. If you want advanced alerts for when I stream, or just a place to chat with other smegheads, feel free to utilize the links provided in the description of this video to join my Discord, where a veritable cavalcade of autistic meme-loving fucks await you. In that same area, you can find links for my original novels, ebooks, and paperbacks, which inflate my ego just a little bit more every time one sells, and if you hated this video, maybe you could try reverse psychology on me by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with your pals. Until next time, thanks for chilling out with me, and remember, if she's old enough to make a rocket ship, she's old enough to take the hottest... if she's old enough to formulate high-altitude crafts capable of penetrating the thermosphere, she's old enough to incubate my Cowper's goo fast, rapeable of menstruating and sperm her rear. Oh well, something like that.